Hey, it's Mike Brennan. We're back with another segment of MITech TV, and we have a longtime friend and contributor, Richard Stiennon from IT Harvest. He's going to be talking about what's going on out there in the cyberspace. And actually, I guess good news this morning, the Cyber 150 was released. Why don't you explain that to the audience and
Sure.
tell them why that's important?
Sure. Thanks, Mike. Good news for me, right? Because it's been on my plate. Usually, I publish the Cyber 150 within the Cybersecurity Yearbook every year, but my publisher, Wiley, opted not to pick it up this year because they had too many copies of last year's version sitting in their warehouse. Um, so I didn't have the same rush. And besides, I was writing a new book, which we can talk about in a second. So spent a frantic week pulling together a list of the 150 fastest growing cybersecurity vendors. Now, if you're not directly in the space, you might not realize just how complicated security has gotten in general. There are over 4,000 vendors in our database. And of course, that's my business, is tracking all those vendors. And I want to demonstrate the value of using data, right? So most of my competitors are Gartner, Forrester, etc., and they don't track data at all. They issue research reports that are based off of surveys for the most part, which, yeah, have data, but it's reported by the vendors. I don't trust vendors, never have, never will. They can't help but lie about where they are. If you ask them what their revenue growth rate is, they'll make up a number, and then it's a job of the analyst, and it keeps the analyst full time busy, is catching them in a lie. So the next year they ask them, and it just goes on and on. You have to keep on top of them. So we use only open source data that they could fiddle with, but they don't. Um, and so we have very objective data. So now I can just add a couple filters to our platform and immediately get all the vendors that with headcount size between 50 and 500, which to me is an interesting space. You know, when I was at Netrix, I was a seventh employee and left when they were 54. I was part of several companies that were 300 employees. So I just arbitrarily said, okay, 50 is interesting. Company's moving and, either has really good revenue or really good funding. 500 is super interesting. But by the time they get to 2 or 3,000, everybody knows who they are. They're getting ready to go public. It's not as interesting to me because I'm interested in changes and innovation. So, in last year, when I published this for the first time, the Cyber 150, as I tracked throughout the year, included about 30 that got new funding just last year and 8 that got acquired. So, and on
Hmm.
top of that, 8 of them graduated out of the 500. So now they matriculated. So now they're bigger than 500. So I went back and I recast that filter and came up with 150 new cybersecurity companies. I think it was 47 were repeats from last year, which is very impressive, right? It's easy to grow from 50 to 100 people and have 100% growth. A lot harder to grow from 100 to 200 people. That's, to have 100% growth. And some of them did. So it's well worth tracking. It gets a lot of attention. The most fun for me personally is that the vendors have no idea this is coming out. There are a few that keep an eye on it, but for the most part, they're totally, just side or surprised that there was an award that they didn't apply for or have to pay for because it's totally objective. They didn't have any input required because this award business, I'm sure you guys have been part of it in the past. It means reaching out to all of them and selling them something. Selling, hey, would you like to participate in this award? Just like, I don't know how often you get asked to be in the who's who of whatever. All
Oh
you have
yeah,
to,
there's a lot of that pay to
yeah,
play stuff going
yeah.
around.
Or on the cover of our new magazine, which we made up just so we could have a cover for you. And it's always laughable when somebody announces that they're on the cover of the magazine and on LinkedIn. It's like, we know you paid for that, buddy.
Hmm.
So that's where we're
So,
at. The press release went out, and the article on my Substack, steenon.substack.com. Uh, and all the data is there. I even make the entire spreadsheet available. And I thought twice about that. There are some very, very large companies, even competitors of mine, who I found out take all of the content marketing I'm doing, because I'm constantly posting really juicy stuff about who's growing and who's not. Um, one organization, a big events company, they have 18 salespeople, and I keep them busy just going after the vendors I mentioned. And so I can't sell them my platform because they don't need to be busier than they are. They're doing quite well. So, but anyways, what the heck? I went ahead and published it. So complete list. Be very interesting. If you go through the list, and I can imagine there's some people who have never heard of any of these companies. Obviously more than half of them have funding, so they've been vetted by venture capitalists.
Okay. So, with that said, why don't you tell us a little bit about the latest things to be scared of in the world of IT security?
Yeah, so it is finally getting to the point where I could be scared by what's going on out there. Because, of course, while I focus on all of the new AI security vendors, AI is being used to compromise people's security. So one of the first, I think we talked about this several months ago. There's several, actually it was last spring around May. We talked about how MIT had done a study using large language models to discover vulnerabilities, and somebody else had done something to theoretically orchestrate an attack. Well, in the meantime, or since then, China has used Anthropic's Claude to actually orchestrate attacks. And Claude found them later on. They watched it, the usage. And Claude and Google have both done massive studies where they took their latest models, they gave it access to a whole bunch of open source code, and in the one case it found 500 new severe vulnerabilities in very, very short order. So people are talking about it, if I can pronounce this right, as a vulnpocalypse, where there are going to be so many new vulnerabilities discovered by AI researchers using AI tools that it'll just swamp the entire infrastructure for reporting on and measuring the severity of vulnerabilities with the MITRE CVE stuff. It'll just be overwhelmed. The same way, remember, when antivirus solutions were overwhelmed because the bad guys figured out how to automatically customize every single piece of malware to each target so that there are millions and millions of new pieces of malware every single day. We're going to get to the point where vulnerabilities are impossible to track. There'll be so many.
Then what?
Scared. And then we are.
And we just turn the things off, I guess.
Yeah, just turn it off. Turn everything off.
Do air gap everything, right? So you just stay on your own computer and don't share, right?
Yeah, air gaps and making sure that you're not exposing anything to the world. And I hate to use the word zero trust, but making sure that everyone who has access to something is authorized to have access to something. It's going to be complicated.
So what other scary thing is going on out there that we should worry about?
Well, I guess we've seen some cyber attacks associated with the new war in Iran. Both directions, but the U.S. had a better coordination. After all, they knew it was coming. And we're able to shut down certain things. Iran kind of shoots itself in the foot because it also shuts down its internet access when it wants to hide stuff from its people or keep its people from communicating with the rest of the world. So same thing as a DDoS attack. Some of the war historians, I guess, that I follow and can analyze this stuff point out that the cyber attacks that are going to be used by the U.S. and Israel are not going to be highly visible to they'll be social and high impact, but in ways that it's okay to reveal that they could do the attack. None of the surreptitious, misguiding of missiles, or drones, intercepting them or fiddling with the GPS and all the rest, because they do not want to reveal to Russia and China that we have those capabilities. So they'll do outage, etc. This morning, there's reports that the Iranian Cyber Command's headquarters was bombed by either Israel or the U.S. So that actually may be good news. We may see less Iranian hacking, right? Iran's always mentioned in the top, is it 5 with Russia, North Korea, China, Iran. So top 4 of perpetrators. So I think we're, in that sense, we may see less of the Iranian cyber hacking. But then now they're talking about, terrorist cells embedded in society that may be activated. They're going to be using pretty good OPSEC if they've actually been embedded all this time without being discovered. Not that our Justice Department spends much time looking for terrorists anymore, since apparently we're being invaded by illegal aliens. Sorry, had to get that in there.
Yeah, where do we
sad,
start?
sad but true.
I guess we won't start on this show because it would last several hours. So we'll just let that pass, for now.
But we may point out that, hey, trying to rename the Department of Defense the Department of War, hey, that's actually what they do. So,
yeah, okay. Any other good news to talk about?
Well, the good news for me is my book coming out. Hopefully Wednesday is when Amazon's going to release the title, and it's a great title. It's Guardians of the Machine Age: Why AI Security Will Define the Future of Digital Defense. So, just a hint or a reminder that long titles are great for keyword association on Amazon. So, the longer the better.
Apparently, yeah, that's a pretty long title there.
I was going to say, I've noticed that in the media business too. The headlines keep getting longer and longer, and we used to try to make them shorter.
That's right.
Right. Used to be 5 or 6 words was the target, but not anymore.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, the headline is where the whole story is told, because that's all anybody reads. So you got to get it in there.
Yeah.
But this book, talk about, right, I started in November. I went up to Mackinac City and went to the Hampton Inn and Suites. I think it's luxury Hampton Inn and Suites, but you know the place, right? It's looking over the beach, right where the ferry boats take off for Mackinac Island. And it's very inexpensive in November, right? There's not much going on up there. There's like one restaurant that's open. You can't get the pasties. Is that the right word? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how you pronounce it.
Pasties are something else entirely.
Yeah. Which is usually what I say, so it's very embarrassing. But I just, focus for 5 or 6 days, which I did. I wrote most of the book, but it was an amazingly interesting task to take on, because writing anything, as you guys know, contemporaneously, you got to be ready to write updates, right? That's why the news journals are great, but writing a book, it's like, oh my gosh, it changes so fast. And I assumed that I'd have a chance to publish an update, May or something, because when I was done with that week, I had 295 new vendors of AI security products. So these are the SOC automation and automated vulnerability analysis tools that are out there. When I finally published, there were 378, and now we're up to 397 after publishing. So I came to realize that, one, I can't get them all in the book. That's okay. And I'm not going to necessarily publish updates on my Substack maybe. But what's going to happen is, by this time next year, every one of the 4,000 cybersecurity vendors are going to be AI security vendors. So the entire category is going away.
Interesting.
Yep.
So how would one get your book? Does it go out on Amazon, or where would they find it?
It goes out on Amazon, or they can come to the big RSA conference on March 23rd in San Francisco, and I'll be signing books for Surf AI, one of the AI security vendors.
Okay, sounds good. And then if they just want to reach you, what's the best way to do it, Richard?
Look me up on LinkedIn. I reside there.
But folks, you can see the spelling of his name right there, and there is only one Richard Stiennon in this business.
That's right.
So yeah, he's easy to find right there. Yeah. Thank you,
Okay.
Richard, for being with us today and scaring the bejesus out of us as usual. That's a good job.
That's my job. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Matt.
All right. Thanks, Richard.